Hey YouTube, Girsu here. Today I'm going to be showing you guys a little retro deck profile. I'm going to show you True Draco Demise post Maximum Crisis. Now this list contains obviously all the cards after Maximum Crisis is released, which was the set that True Draco premiered in, and the only set that True Draco premiered in. No set after that had provided any named support for True Draco monsters. So obviously Maximum Crisis was one of the most powerful sets of all time, at least in the Arc 5 era, and it was the last set actually for the Arc 5 era. Premiered cards like Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, obviously all the True Draco cards, Dragonic Diagram, which was also good in True Draco or in True King Dinos. Premiered a lot of very powerful cards, and this deck, even to this day, is still one of the most powerful decks. Obviously, they've neutered it pretty bad. Dragonic Diagram is currently limited, Terraforming is limited. This bad boy right here is banned for good reasons. Dynamite is limited, Card of Demise is limited. It took them a while to hit most of it, actually, but yeah, so this was one of my decks that I was the most successful with back in my super competitive days. I piloted this deck from all the way till Dynamite was limited, up until they banned Masterpiece. So I played through Zodiac format with True Draco. I played through, Trickstars, whatchamacallit. What was the other deck I'm trying to think of? Spiral for a very short period of time. That was around about when Spiral came out when this deck got banned. And then another high contender was Electromite Turbo with Astrograph Sorcerer. That was actually the same list. They put Astrograph, they banned Astrograph and Masterpiece on the same list. So I piloted this deck for quite some time. I've had a lot of success with it. I know the ins and outs of this deck very well, and I'm a very good pilot with it, not to toot my own horn. And even to this day, I actually recently posted this deck facing off against Full Power Salad, and it 2-0'd it. So even to this day, the power of this deck still stands true. So we're going to get into it, and we're going to start with the boss monster of the deck. Triple Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King. Now this card was basically to certain decks such as Paleozoic, decks like anything that relied on certain specific outs. This was an auto win. So for you younger players out there who don't know what this card does or aren't familiar with its effects, basically all the True Draco monsters, you did not have to tribute monsters for them. You could tribute monsters for them, but you did not have to. You could also tribute face-up continuous spell or trap cards. So what Masterpiece says is you can tribute summon this card face-up by tributing monster, spell, or trap, and whatever you used to tribute summon him, he was unaffected by. He's a level 8 monster, so he takes 2 tributes. That means you can make him unaffected by 2 of the 3 types of cards in the game. So if you played against Paleozoic, for instance, and you made him unaffected by monsters and traps, 9 times out of 10 you would automatically just win the game. And if that wasn't enough, during either player's turn, he can pop a card on the field by banishing a continuous spell or trap from your graveyard. None of his effects are hard once per turn, so it's only once per copy. So if you got multiples on the field, you're popping multiple cards. You can get 1 Masterpiece unaffected by monsters and spells. You get 1 Masterpiece unaffected by monsters and traps. You get 1 unaffected by spells and traps. So yeah, you play 3 of this card because it's never a brick, because it's super easy to summon this card no matter what, because you never even really needed to truly have monsters on the field. And with other cards in the deck, it was also very easy for you to get tribute fodder because of the additional effects of the spell and traps. So his partner in crime, which was the best single tribute summon for the deck, you had your Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Fighter. Basically, what this guy does is during either player's turn, when your opponent activated a card or effect, he would let you put a trap card directly from your deck face up on your field. So, and the trap cards for True Draco the True Draco trap cards are very powerful. They are escalation of the Monarchs. So what you would do is you would summon this guy. He's only a 1 tribute. You can also tribute spell or traps with him as well. So you would tribute him. As soon as your opponent activated a card or effect, you would place True King or True Draco trap card on your field, which if you had another True Draco monster in your hand, you would be able to then summon that one to the field right next to him. This is also not a hard once per turn. Every card in this deck is more, all the monsters are soft once per turn. So if you have multiples on the field, you can use all of their effects. So 3 of him. For the last 2 monsters, you played 1 Ignis Heat and 1 Majesty Maiden. Now this looks a little weird now because now people play triple Ignis Heat because now he's technically the best one because he's at 3. He's the only good one at 3. So what he does is he's like Dynamite Knight. He fetches you a spell card from your deck, just as powerful, but Dynamite Knight was just way better back in the day. This was good against Zodiac, so you would normal summon this guy. You had Dryden on the field, you would tribute summon for it. And as soon as you go into battle phase, go to attack into it. As soon as they activated Dryden's effect, targeting your Ignis Heat, you would chain your Ignis Heat, you would put your Draco Heritage on the field, and then you would be able, after they destroyed him, Heritage would allow you to draw a card. Majesty Maiden is just your 4th of any of your other 2 big guys in the deck. She lets you search monsters. So, yeah. That's it for the monsters. You don't need to play more monsters in the deck, and you'll see why. So for the spell cards, which you play a lot of them, you play triple Dragonic Diagram. This card was phenomenal. Back in the day, this card was about $100 a copy, and it stayed $100 per copy. It ranged from $80 to $90 a copy for quite some time. This card was absolutely phenomenal. Field spells were so broken back in the day, and they're still broken to this day. Not to mention, Terraforming was at 3 for quite some time, so you were allowed to play 6 of this card. And again, this card is not a hard once per turn. But you guys might be very familiar with this card, but I'll give you the quick rundown. It boosts all your True Draco and True Kings by 300. And the first time a tribute summon True Draco or True King will be destroyed by battle each turn, it's not destroyed. So they would have to kill your big guys twice, which was also a massive threat for them. And then once per turn, you can destroy a card you control or in your hand, which is not cost, and then you add a True Draco or True King card from your deck to your hand. So this was your consistency. And you never play it at any less than it's at. It was at 3, you play it at 3. And then you play triple Terraforming because Dragonic Diagram absolutely 100% made your deck go round. So you wanted to see it every turn, you wanted to see multiples of it every turn. It was never bad. So Terraforming just got you there. They ogred the first one, bam, slap down a Terraforming, get the second one. You know, I mean, it's as simple as that. Terraforming was at 3 and it was super powerful. It is limited now to 1, thank God, because field spells are just so busted. And it's basically like running 37 card decks with Terraforming because it's just an extra 3 of any field spell. So now we'll go on to the True Draco spell cards that you can search. You got triple True Draco Heritage. Now what this card does, it does multiple things. So basically, the 2 spell cards allowed you during your main phase, you can get an additional tribute summon of a True Draco or True King monster. So if you have this on the field, you didn't have to use your regular normal summon, you can activate this, activate its effect to give you an additional tribute summon, and bam, slap a monster on the field. And you haven't even used your regular tribute summon yet either, so you would want to utilize this as much as possible. And another benefit is your tribute summoning, not special summoning, so it didn't conflict with cards like Pot of Duality, Card of Demise. So this was absolutely nuts. And on top of that, during your main phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of True Draco cards sent from the field to the graveyard, and that included your opponent. So in the mirror match, you always wanted to go second because you would absolutely blow your opponent's board out by tribute summoning monsters and popping cards with Diagram and drawing 3 to 2 cards off of your opponent's neg. So this card was absolutely busted in the mirror match. And also, the spell cards float. When the spell cards are sent from the field to the graveyard, they pop a spell or trap your opponent controls. So 3 absolutely amazing effects. Also beautiful artwork on this card. So, yeah. Triple True Draco Heritage, never any less. And for the last of the spell, for the True Draco spells, you play triple Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix. This card is basically Daigusto Emerald for any of your True Draco cards. You target 3 True Draco or True King cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into your deck, then draw a card. This card absolutely stopped you from decking out and recycled your masterpieces, traps, and other things that you were limited on after you activated your Pot of Desires. Because you were not afraid to activate Pot of Desires in this deck one bit because you had 3 of literally everything. This deck reeks of consistency. And so you would do this, you would recycle any cards. They killed your masterpiece, put them back in the deck, search them again, summon them again. There you go. This also gives you an additional tribute summon, and this also pops a card when it's sent from the field to the graveyard. So, very powerful. That's the last of the True Draco spells. Now for the draw power. Draw power is unreal in this deck. So you play triple Card of Demise. This card was stayed at 3 for the longest time, and I did not understand how and why, but I wasn't really complaining while playing True Draco, obviously. This card is like Pot of Greed on crack. You just basically draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. So if you had 1 card in your hand, you would draw 2. If you had 2 cards in your hand, you would draw 1. And you had no cards in your hand, you draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. Also, for the rest of this turn, your opponent takes no damage. Also, remember that for the rest of this turn, your opponent takes no damage. So you, in certain instances, you would go into your battle phase, poke for your 24, your 23, your 25, whatever, and then you would activate Card of Demise. So you can get around that very easily. And then during the end phase of the turn, you would send your entire hand to the graveyard. But the beauty of this deck is you played a total of 8 monsters. So even if you had 1 monster left in your hand that you couldn't summon, it doesn't matter. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be drawing into 3 spells or trap cards with this card, so you're going to be able to set them on your field before you end phase, so you would not discard them. And one thing is you cannot special summon during the turn you activate this card. Seems like a drawback, huh? Absolutely not in this deck. You do not special summon. So there's only 1 card in this deck that special summons, and you obviously have to just work around that, and it's a trap, so you usually activate it during your opponent's turn. So for some more draw power, you play triple Pot of Duality. Back in the day, I was kind of teetering between 1 and 2 of this card because it is a hard once per turn. So unfortunately, if you've seen multiples of this card in your hand, it was a little bit of a bummer. But the power of this card, even to this day, is still absolutely nuts. There's cards, like Area Zero, Salmon, Great Foxy, that do what this card does. Within their archetype, this card just lets you add anything off the top of your deck, so you never whiffed, you never missed. So, and then you can't special summon when you activate it, but like I said, that's not a drawback. So yeah, triple Pot of Duality, very old card, very powerful card, but you definitely play 3. You can play 2 if you want, if you're playing in a old school or duel with your friend, because obviously you cannot play this deck full power anymore. And then last of the draw power, you played double Pot of Desires. Pretty self-explanatory. Every single card in this deck, more or less, you play 2 or 3 of, mostly 3 ofs, so you were not hindered by playing this card at all. There are instances where, yes, you will accidentally banish all 3 of your masterpieces, but that's just a chance that I'm definitely 150% willing to take every time I activate this card, because card advantage, hand advantage was everything in this deck, and the amount of the cards that you can draw off of this card just plus you insane, and this card was just absolutely nuts in this deck, and I would never not play True Draco without Pot of Desires. That is it for the spell cards. So as you can see with the spell cards, it's completely filled with draw power, draw power, draw power, and draw power. During your turn, it was possible for you to draw, 6 or 7 cards per turn. That's what the deck did. It drew cards, it seen every card it wanted to see, and it did it every single turn. So if you didn't answer them, and you didn't answer their masterpiece, you didn't answer their back row in 1 turn, scoop them up. It's game. The deck will lock you out. You will not be able to compete against this deck at all. That was why half of the cards on this deck are limited or banned. So yeah, very, very powerful cards. Now for the traps, you got your True King's Return. I explained this a little bit, but what this card does is it lets you target a True King or True Draco monster in your graveyard, and you could special summon it in defense position. So that was your free tribute fodder. This is the only card in your deck that special summons. So you could set this after you activate a Card of Demise and then just activate it on your opponent's turn and special summon. So there you go. And also, during your opponent's main phase, this allowed you to tribute summon a True Draco or True King monster. So this was very good with interruption, because when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, it pops a monster on the field. So what you would do is you would, as soon as your opponent summoned a monster that you felt needed to be off the field before they can do anything significant with it, you would activate this card, and then you would tribute summon one of your level 1 guys or a masterpiece, and then you would pop the monster on their field, stopping them from going to Xyz plays, Link plays, anything. More or less Xyz and Synchros at the time, because this was very short-lived in the Link era. So yeah, triple of this card is absolutely nuts. You could fetch it with Dynamite, so you always had access to it. So 3 of that. Then the second one, just as good, and arguably a little bit better in certain instances. True Draco Apocalypse. What this card does, it does the same thing. It lets you tribute summon on your opponent's turn, and when it hits the graveyard, it pops a monster on the field. But the very, very good effect of this card is you could target one other face-up True King or True Draco card you control, destroy it, and you permanently half the attack of all monsters that your opponent controls, and that's permanent, like I said. So you can activate this card in the damage step if they finally think that they got that strong enough, oh, I got a 3,500 monster on the field, I'm ready to destroy Masterpiece. You would activate this card, pop another one of your cards in damage step, and then they just ran their own monster over. Same thing with the smaller guys. So on top of Diagram protecting your smaller guys once for battle, this was also a backup plan, and this was just insane with mass halving the attack of your opponent's big boards, and like I said, that was permanent. So yeah, their monsters are not going to run you over in battle. It was very, 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 very difficult to play against this deck, and 9 times out of 10, you would either just lose right away, or you're going to have a very rough time trying to gain some advantage. So that's it for the True Draco trap cards. Now we're going to go on to the best part of the deck, and that would be the Floodgates. So this deck has the ability to play Floodgates like no other deck, and that being said, that the reason why is because of Diagram and because of the fact that you can tribute summon continuous traps and continuous spell cards. So you have a card like Anti-Spell Fragrance. You ran 2 of this card. Both players must set spell cards before activating them and cannot activate them until their next turn. So this card did not hinder you whatsoever. There are times, yes, where this card is a little bit of a hindrance if you don't have Diagram access or you don't have access to a monster. That's very few and far between. So basically, you would set your entire board up, you would summon your monsters, and then you would flip this during the standby phase. And unless they had Twin or Cosmic Cyclone in their hand, they would not be able to use spell cards. So they would do whatever with their monsters. They're not going to do much. And then you would pass. And when it came back to your turn, if you drew a spell card, it sucks because you have Anti-Spell Fragrance on the field. Oh yeah, I could just pop it with Diagram, and I can use my spell cards. So yeah, Floodgates were absolutely 100% not Floodgates against you. They were all one-sided. So that was another level of power that the deck had that no other deck had. That they could play Floodgates, and it did not hinder them at all. Like I said, there's that slim chance that you have the wrong hand, and it does hinder you. I've been down that road before, but it's very few and far between. So 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance. And for the absolute blowout cards, you have double Monarch's Erupt, and then you have 1 Skill Drain. So basically, Monarch's Erupt is Skill Drain, but in my opinion, it is a little bit better than Skill Drain if you have the right card set up. So basically, you activate this card. If you have no cards in your extra deck, you're playing True Draco. You don't have an extra deck. And you control a Tribute Summon monster. You negate the effects of all monsters on the field except Tribute Summon monsters. So it didn't hinder you at all. All your monsters are Tribute Summon monsters. And then during your end phase, if you control no Tribute Summon monsters, you send it to the grave. But that's not really a hindrance. Skill Drain was really good. The only problem with Skill Drain is you want to activate the effects of your little guys. But I still ran this card because, like I said, with Anti-Spell Fragrance, when the time comes and you want to activate your effects, you just pop it with Diagram, or you can Tribute Summon over it and get it off the field. But either way, I liked to play the 2-1 ratio because Skill Drain was, Skill Drain is just a good card in general, and you wanted to see them. You didn't really want to play triple Monarch's Erupt because, the difference is if you draw this or that, you can activate Skill Drain anytime you want, even if you have no monsters on the field. So that's really the only advantage to me that Skill Drain has over Monarch's Erupt. And so 1 Skill Drain, 2 Monarch's Erupt. That's it for that. So basically, with this little trifecta of cards right here, your opponent had absolutely not very many options. They weren't going to use their monster effects, and they're not going to be able to activate spell cards. So yeah. And then the very last of the trap cards that you play in the deck is Triple Solemn Strike. Now, this just ensures that even if your opponent has no monster effects or spell cards, they're not going to be summoning any big monsters either. So yeah, and this also stopped monster effects that once you were past, turn 1 or 2, this stopped cards like Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, Droll and Lockbird, and Ghost Ogre from stopping Diagram from resolving, and they can't chain to this. Obviously, it's a counter trap. So yeah, this was very powerful. Back in the day, I also you could also play the 2 strike and 1 warning. Warning was at 1 back in the day, but I always preferred Triple Solemn Strike because it's the least amount of life points that you have to pay for a Solemn card, and it's the most generic, and it works against damn near every deck. So, but in the mirror match, Solemn Warning was better because you can stop the tribute summons with it. But yeah, like I said, in the mirror match, you always wanted to go second. So yeah, you never really had to worry about setting Solemn Warning to go first. So yeah, guys, that is the deck profile. Like I said, this deck is one of the most powerful decks of all time. That's why most of the cards in this deck are limited and or banned. But I just wanted to show you guys. I have a couple of these decks where they're banned, and but to me it's just nostalgic. And these cards, the cards are really good looking. They look great. They're fun to look at. I collect a lot of cards, for the sake of staring at them. But yeah, this deck is so fun. For me, it's not fun to play against. Like, I play against my friends with this deck, and they get pretty frustrated because it's not fun to play against, and I totally understand. But to me, this deck is just absolutely super fun to play. So yeah, if you guys ever feel like playing an old school deck and you got the cards, put this bad boy together and piss your friends off. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Give it a like and subscribe, and put some comments down below and tell me what you thought of this deck. I'm sure none of it is good. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. Girsu out.